Good morning. As we get ready to start our public hearing, if you could remind everybody to either mute or turn off their cell phones so we can avoid any unnecessary interruptions. And we're going to start this thing in about 6 seconds.
All the rock stars are
Hey,
here.
Chris, you ready to roll?
George is here.
And I will call this public hearing to order. Item A is going to be the truth and taxation hearing. Mauricio, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Morning.
Morning, Mauricio, again.
Good morning again, sir. I would like to get started with, get the presentation up there and speak a little bit about the state mandated increases, and then we'll go into the truth and taxation meeting as required by statute. Thank you, Chris. Hey, good morning again, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and members of the public. This is the Santa Cruz County Public Hearing Truth and Taxation as per Arizona Revised Statute 42-17107 and 48-254. I would like to get started. If I turn it on, right? There we go. That would be a good idea. Thank you, Chris.
Let's get the laugh out now, because
Yes.
who knows it later, right?
Exactly. Yes, thank you, sir. So the truth and, okay, the state mandated increases, we continue to face increases mandated by the state due to an increase in 119,000 increase in numerous retirement plans, health insurance cost increase of 155,000, and then the largest increase we've had so far is the Arizona long-term care contribution increase by $532,000. We also have liability increases, insurance increases of 70,000, as well as a library contribution of 25,000. That's a total of over about $900,000 in increases that were mandated that we don't have any control over.
Mauricio, in the Arizona long-term care contribution increase, that was mandated by the state legislature?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, that is correct. That's mandated by the state legislator. In previous years, we've been fortunate that the federal government provided some assistance for that, but this year they did not, and then the state poured that extra burden on the county.
So with their $5 billion surplus, they decided to pass this increase on to the counties?
Unfortunately, that is correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
The primary tax and truth and taxation analysis. As per the Arizona Department of Revenue, the maximum allowable levy limit is $19,228,897. However, we are proposing a primary property tax levy amount of $15,796,321, well below the maximum allowable levy. Cognizant of an incoming recession, staff is not recommending a tax increase, so we are recommending the primary tax rate remain the same as last year at $4.0515. So no tax rate increase proposal, it's only overall assessed values increased only. So the rate would remain the same as at $4.05, 4.0515. The primary property tax levy is $15,796,321. That would be about an $8.32 annual increase, about 69 cents per month on a home valued at $100,000 on an average tax bill. However, if your assessed values did not change, your taxes will remain the same. On the secondary tax proposal, we are recommending the same, no increase, only the increase due to overall assessed values, keeping the same property tax rate as FY22 at 81.03 cents. That would increase $1.54 annually on an average tax bill on a home valued at $100,000, or about 13 cents per month. So overall, the annual effect on the primary and secondary tax due to overall assessed values increase only. The total primary tax of $8.32 on a home valued at $100,000 total secondary tax increase of $1.54 on a home valued at $100,000, for a total of primary and total tax increase $9.86, or about 82 cents per month. That's on a home average of valued of $100,000. If your home values didn't change, your tax rate remains the same. That's my presentation that I have, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, for the truth in taxation. I'm open for any type of discussion from the board or any comments from the board and the public.
Okay, at this time, are there any comments or questions from the board?
So, where does our expenditure limit come in? Is that on the property tax? Or is that on the second page? So in other words, we're gonna be collecting taxes on, property taxes on $15,796.31. So that's the revenue that we're gonna collect. The
Correct.
expenditures come in on the second page?
The expenditures, I will go over that on when I go over the budget. That
Okay,
is
that's what I wanted to.
correct, Mr. Yes.
Good, thank you.
And just for the record, were you done, Supervisor Reese?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. The assessed values, a lot of that depends on where you live too, whether home values have increased due to sales and all that, right?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, that is correct. I mean, the values of the properties do vary, and if there was no change or any significant change on your value of your property, then your amounts will remain the same. There's not gonna be any impact.
Okay, thank you. Just for clarification purposes.
Are there any other
No,
questions?
thank
Alicia?
you. Thank you,
Alicia,
Maurice.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So, item 2, presentation of the Santa Cruz County budget for fiscal year 2022-2023.
Supervisor Becker, could we just make sure if there's any public comment before we move on? I'm sorry.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there any public comment on the Zoom world or in the room? Anybody like to ask any questions? You can hit *9, or you can raise your hand on your computer. Okay, seeing nobody in Zoom world, I have a constituent here, Kathy Campana. Would you like to approach the podium and identify yourself, please? Even though I've already identified you.
For the record, there are no homes left in Santa Cruz County that are $100,000.
Well, at least for sale, there's a lot of homes, but not for sale.
I received a copy of the secondary property taxes and the special district taxes, and totaled them up. And we're paying 14.82% in taxes between fire districts, school districts, and the county. And for me, since my taxes seem to go up every year, I'm not sure why I keep getting reassessed. I haven't built anything new. I'm paying over $4,000 a year. So I find it very difficult to believe that people that live in a $200,000 home can afford $3,000 a year just for their taxes. Everything else has gone up. I know the cost of running the government has gone up. And I don't want to say, you charge too much, because obviously we're getting some services for it. But I think you need to be aware that 14% in taxes is a major chunk for people that are low income. And again, there are no $100,000 homes left in this county. So since the average home price right now, I think, is around $224, people are going to be paying a sizable chunk, and if they're on a limited income, it could be a hardship. So something to consider for future tax raises.
Okay, thank you very much for your comment.
And Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir,
If I
Mr.
may.
Reese.
thank you. Kathy, thank you for your comments. I appreciate it, and you hit the nail on the head. We're, at the county, we're only going to be responsible for $9.86 of the tax rate to the homeowner. We, as a board, have no control over what the community college does, what the school districts do, what the fire districts do in your area. And they are a taxing organization as well, and they set their tax rate. And I know as a county, we get blamed that, you know, we're paying too much taxes, but it's because of the other taxing districts. I know that the school districts are required to do the same thing. I sit on the Nogales Unified School District Board, and we have to present what our budget is going to be. I think we also have to publish it like we did in the newspaper. So it gives the residents and the people of our community an opportunity to look and voice their concerns. However, having said that, I think most of the districts, I know that Rio Rico School District passed a huge bond issue, that they're doing a lot to really improve quality of education for the students there. But that bond issue was approved by the voters, which we have no control over. And likewise, any of the school districts or any of the college, if they want to go out, that's up to the community to decide, you know, are we going to allow it or not? So for the most part, and I can say this, is that we've been very conservative when it comes to taxing and spending the public's dollar, because we understand. I'm very concerned as well because of the recession, inflation going up, everything costs more. You heard today in our earlier meeting, the newspaper had to raise it 4 cents because of cost for ink, paper, and everything else. So, you know, we're not immune, and I feel your guys' pain as well, that we try to make sure that whatever it is that this board puts into place, that people are able to meet that. Now, I would recommend to you that there is a process to challenge your assessed valuation. It's available to all the residents of Santa Cruz County. I would encourage you to reach out to the assessor's office and say that you feel, you know, you want to appeal, that you feel that it's overvalued or whatever. It's up to you. And the good thing about it is, as a board, we don't no longer listen to it, so it goes to a third party that'll hear the appeal, and you can go from there. But you know, we're all going through some hard times right now, and thank you for your comments, because I'm sure there's a lot of members in the community that feel just like you do, but you're here to talk about them, and we'll hear them at the supermarket or at church or anywhere we go, that how come, you know, it's so expensive. So, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you very much. Supervisor Malera, do you have any comments?
Well, I also live in Rio Rico, so I understand. And I agree with Supervisor Reese. You know, we are maintaining, we are always prudent, and a lot of times the other entities are the ones that add, like you said, 14%, you know, it's quite a bit. So, yeah, I do agree, but there are options, as Supervisor Reese mentioned. At this time, I want to thank all the electeds and all the department heads for working diligently with Mauricio and Jennifer through the process, and you know, they fully understand what we're going through, and it's scary times, and I thank them for tightening their buckle and being part of a team that we're all real proud of. And those are my comments.
Okay. Thank you very much. And there was no other comments from the Zoom world or anybody in the audience? And then we will move on to the presentation of the Santa Cruz County budget for fiscal year 2022, 2023. Mauricio, you're back on. Make sure your clicker's on.
One last comment.
Oh, yes, sir.
I know you mentioned it, Mr. Chairman, and people need to know that the state keeps, even as they've had an increase in finances and they say it publicly, yet they still continue to take from the counties. And that's been a battle for us since I've been around, and I'm pretty sure Supervisor Reese has been around, you know, and so they still keep taking and squeezing us. So we need to continue to fight with the state to not take away from funding they provide for us and continue to support us. And that's the hardest thing for us. You know, trying to maintain while every year you get more and more unfunded increases from the state. So those are my frustrations personally.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mauricio, your clicker's on. You're good to go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Chris? Before you is going to be a presentation for the FY 22-23 upcoming final budget. I'll go over each schedule, and then I'll stop at each slide, see if the board has any comments or any questions. I wanna start by thanking the Board of Supervisors for their continued support and all elected officials and department heads for keeping all expenditures within their respective budgets. I would also like to thank County Manager Ms. St. John and HR Director Ms. Jones for their assistance and support during the budget process. The county continues to be proactive with federal and state grants. The School Superintendent's Office received the $5.8 million ARPA funds from the Department of Education, as well as an additional $1.8 million in COVID-related grants, which allows the county to offset many expenditures from the general fund into those federal grants. An additional $14 million in grant funding for capital projects, including the Ephraim Canyon Flood Control Project and for airport improvement projects that will begin in FY 23. I'll start off with Schedule A. This is the first schedule. Looks a little bit complicated, and I try to highlight the major amounts there for our budget year. For Schedule A, it's the summary schedule of estimated revenues and expenditures for FY 22 and 2023. The general fund budgeted expenditures for FY 23 are at $40,003,500. Last year, the budgeted expenditures were $35,525,767. Special revenue funds budgeted expenditures for FY 23 are at $65,184,231. For FY 22, they were $62,377,297. These are mostly, again, federal and state grants and our projections of anticipated funding, including the ARPA and continuing COVID-19 related grants. The debt service funds budgeted expenditures for FY 23 are $903,427. Last year, they were at $905,637. This is a decrease due to a decrease in administrative fees. The biggest jump we've had, the capital project funds budgeted expenditures for FY 23 are at $15,368,637. Last year, they were at $3,173,293. These are the federal and state grants. This is an increase attributed to the Ephraim Canyon Flood Project and all the multiple airport improvement projects, which is a huge jump from last year, but they're all set to begin this fiscal year. Our enterprise fund, which is our landfill fund, budgeted expenditures for FY 23 are at $10,307,961. Adopted expenditures for FY 22 were at $9,006,614,470. This is an increase due to the closure of post-closure costs associated with the landfill. So total for all funds for FY '23, we have budgeted expenditures of $131,767,756. The variance from one year to another is again the federal and state grants and the projects that we have pending. Do we have, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, are there any questions for Schedule A?
Are there any members from the board? Any
Just,
questions?
Just
Mr. Reese?
a comment. So all these federal grants is we pay up front, then apply for reimbursement. Is that correct? Because we don't get the money up front.
We Mr. Chairman, members of the board, on very minimal ones, we do have an upfront amount, kind of like the ARPA, the big grant that was
Mhm.
provided to us in two different payments up front. But the most part, the majority of them are reimbursable. That is correct.
So the 10 million, little less than 10 million we got, that was okay to use right away, which has helped us, along with what we got for CARES money a year and a half ago from the state, so.
Correct. That has provided a lot of alleviation for the general fund. That is correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Supervisor Miller?
No, sir, no
No
comment.
questions at this time. Okay. Alicia?
Okay, I'll move on to Schedule B. Schedule B provides us a summary of tax levy and tax rate information. So overall, our local sales tax revenue has been increasing to an average about 30% compared to last year. State shared revenue remains the same and par to last year. However, many economists and research predict a recession likely in 2023 or in 2024. As discussed in the Truth and Taxation, as per the Arizona Revised Statute, our maximum allowable levy is $19,228,897. However, we are proposing much less amount of $15,796,321. Second page on the Schedule B. So we're proposing the same tax rate as last year at $4.0515 for the primary tax rate, and then for the secondary tax rate at 0.8103 cents as well. We are cognizant of the situation that we're facing, of recession looming, of what we're forecasting. I don't know what impact we're gonna have due to our border, since we depend so much on border shoppers as well, but we are proposing the same tax rate as last year. Any questions on Schedule B, Mr. Chairman, members of the board?
Are there any questions, Supervisor Reese? Supervisor Miller?
No, sir.
Okay, continue, please.
Our next schedule is Schedule C, and I apologize that we have very small numbers there. Schedule C provides a summary of fund type of revenues other than property taxes. So Schedule C will provide an estimated and actual revenues for the general fund as well as other funds. So the general fund, the estimated revenues are at $14,200,915. For FY '22, estimated revenues were at $12,982,690, and actual revenues are at $17,736,330. Notice that those actual revenues are much higher than what we anticipated last year. That was due to the SR 189 project. That project, brought in a lot of revenue for us. Of course, that project has been completed. Our revenues have gone back to the normal stages. However, we did see an increase due to the IOI implementation, and then those taxes have been coming in, and we've noticed a little bit of an increase as well on that.
Have you had an opportunity to calculate exactly what you think we received in taxes from the SR 189? You don't have to report it now. I know it's numbers you probably have to pull together.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I don't have that figure, but it is a significant amount that was pulled in, but I can have that amount for you as well.
Thank you. I'd appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
that project saved us that particular year, because we were the only county that had a substantial increase that year during COVID. So
Correct.
it was perfect timing for us.
We're fortunate to have it, correct, and then
It would have been very nice if it had been on top of regular revenue, but the fact that we had it to cover our shortfall,
Yep.
our drop in revenue because the border was closed was
Absolutely.
very helpful, and I know that
Correct.
the city of Nogales also benefited from that same, because their tax rate is twice what our tax rate is.
Correct. On page 4 of Schedule C, I'll continue on. For the special revenue funds, the total estimated revenues for fiscal year 23 are 37,248,858. For FY 22, estimated revenues were at 37,046,478, and actual revenues at 17,979,069. Total for all funds for FY 23 estimated revenues are at $68,474,003. For FY 22, estimated revenues were at $54,907,544, and actual revenues at $39,276,335. This is again the increase in the federal and state grants, including the Ephraim Canyon project and the related airport revenue grants. And I can answer any questions the board might have on Schedule C.
Okay, are there any questions on Schedule C, Supervisor Vice Chairman Reese?
No, just a comment that we're fortunate that we're able to get many of these federal grants to help assist us build projects in our community that would be otherwise impossible for us to build on our own. So they have a positive impact. That Ephraim Canyon will have a positive impact along Western Avenue in some of the areas where there's heavy flooding occurs. So those are things that as we move forward, thank goodness there's still some of those federal grants available for us to take advantage. So thank you, Mauricio. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Malera.
I just want to personally give our chairman kudos, because he's the one that spearheaded our sleeving of the IOI, and we worked really hard for that, and we thank you for leading the effort.
Thank you. I think that it's important to note that, you know, we have, this board is very active in working with our federal delegation, not just the 9 congressional delegates, but also our 2 senators, and they've been extremely supportive of these projects. And in our regular Board of Supervisors meeting, Supervisor Malera acknowledged that Senator Kelly got into the Senate budget an additional $2 million for this Ephraim Canyon project. So these are big numbers. I mean, $2 million for our county to do a project is we scratch our heads and figure out how to get it done. But when that money can come from the federal government to do a project, especially Ephraim Canyon, which, as Supervisor Reese noted, will take a lot of homes, 250 homes out of the floodplain. It also decreases the pressure on the Nogales Wash with the IOI and downstream flooding. So this is a huge project for us, and it's something I know been in the works with Supervisor Reese probably since he got elected to get that done. And you know, it's just the tenacity of the flood control district and our staff to get these things pushed through. And the timing, you got to be ready when the timing is right. And if you're not ready, it'll pass you by. So we were ready, and we really appreciate the work of our staff. Alicio?
Mr. Chairman, I want to personally, publicly thank Luis Heredia, who works for Senator Kelly, who has been a great ally for us.
Okay. Mauricio, you're back on.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Members of the board. Schedule D. Schedule D, we have,
The numbers got smaller.
it's a little smaller and smaller
They're getting smaller and smaller.
as we go along.
Could we get a magnifying glass next time, Mauricio?
I will make a note of that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank
Thank you. Schedule D provides a summary of interfund transfers in and out. That's basically what our mandated funding for the jail district, the health department, the animal control, and then the matches for the federal and state grants.
Okay.
Are there any questions, Mr. Chairman, members of the board on Schedule D?
Any other questions? Any questions from the dais? Thank you. Continue.
Schedule E provides a summary by department of expenditure within each type fund. So Schedule E will provide a breakdown of budgeted and actual expenditures by each fund type. For the general fund, as we reviewed in Schedule A, we have our $40,003,500. The rest of Schedule E provides a breakdown by fund type, and I can glad to answer any questions on any fund type that you might have. I only included this slide for Schedule E.
Any questions from the dais?
No, sir.
So this is Is this where the Department of Revenue sends their expenditure limit, or is it through the Auditor General?
The Department of Revenue, I'm sorry?
So our expenditure limit, so we have an estimated here, so you say, summary of expenditures. So this is the cost to do business.
Right.
So how does this affect the overall? Because I know that, yeah.
So our expenditure limitation, I can go back to Schedule A, and we have
We're
there.
down at the bottom.
At the
there, so-
bottom, correct. Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. There it is at the bottom, and we expect that we're gonna be, of course, below that.
Okay.
And we're moving forward and making every effort that we can use carry forward funds so we can utilize and stretch that expenditure limitation as best as we can.
So, but I guess my point is that the state sets it, and if we have carry forward, we kind of adjust the carry forward to meet the expenditures, but somewhere along the line, we keep kicking the can down the road. We have to do something to fix it permanently. So in other words, we can have all the money here, but because the expenditure says this, whatever we have here, we can't spend.
Correct.
And so somewhere along the line, we'll have to look to go out to the community and have an election to raise the base year limit to allow us to have those funds. So right now, we have approximately, what, $15 million in carry forward?
Correct, and
More or
we are,
less.
and we are restricted, you know, yes, thank you for that, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Ruiz. We are restricted from the spending, and we are set at a certain amount by the state every year, and unfortunately, this year it went down for us due to the closure of the border, because that's taking into account the traffic that we have, but since the border was closed, that affected us negatively in this, for this particular case. But we do, yes, we need to plan ahead and go forward and go towards the voters so we can propose a type of a plan so we can have the ability to spend the funds that we are receiving.
Because it's set on a population basis, and I remember one of the first big pieces of legislation when I got here was to allow a percentage of the crossings so we could raise our expenditure limit. They were doing it at 48. I think we got a floating population of 60 to 80,000, if I remember correctly.
Correct.
And that allowed us to really do more with the expenditure limit. And I understand for the 2 years that the border was closed, the crossings were down. And so that has an impact on our expenditure limit. So hopefully now that the border's back up and open and people can come across, we can start to see the crossings begin to come, up to the level that we were before to allow us to go there, because those are the numbers that the state uses. And,
Correct.
I mean, you know, we talk about a lot of things. We talk about, you know, this is the money we're gonna get in, but we also need to realize that, well, we can have surplus cash because our hands are tied because of expenditure limits that are set by the state. And we're lucky ours isn't as bad as many other counties in the state. So just to be open with the public to understand that somewhere along the line, we may have to get a committee together and go out and push to fix it probably as permanent as we can, and it stops us from using our carry forward. So we're just balancing with carry forward, and we're able to move forward. But I would like to have a more permanent fix so that staff and everybody's not, you know, cutting their or pulling their hair, trying to find a way to plug things in. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Supervisor Malera?
I personally fully agree with Supervisor Reese. I think this is gonna become a bigger issue once the mine really gets going, because our amount is gonna almost double. So we definitely need to probably go to the voters and look into this in the future to
And
prevent problems down the road.
Okay. Any other comments? Mauricio?
Thank you, Mauricio. You handled that well.
thank you, sir. We finished Schedule F, I'll go to Schedule G. So Schedule G provides a number of full-time equivalent and compensation related to each specific fund. So for the general fund, our full-time equivalent is listed at 217 for the coming year, and a total compensation of 18,434,248. The rest of Schedule G provides the same information related to all the funds that the county has, including all state and grant funding. And I would like to speak a little bit about employee retention and recruitment. In our continued effort to improve employee retention and competitively recruit professional talent, this budget includes a recommended cost of living adjustment increase of 6% for all current employees, as well as an additional wage adjustment to our lower wage workers. This is a similar increase to the Social Security COLA of 5.9, which was issued in 2022, and many projections stipulate a 10.5 COLA increase in Social Security for 2023. This will also help alleviate the consumer price index of 9.1 increase percent. This 6% recommended increase is about a $500,000 hit on the general fund plus EREs. Are there any questions or any comments for our regarding the employee retention and recruitment?
Sure, I have a question on that, but I'll let my other board members.
Thank you. Excuse me again. So I support what we're doing here to try to keep our employees. Employees are the best asset that any organization has. And if we're able to keep them and if they're happy, there's a lot of knowledge with our employees, and I would hate to see them leave and leave voids in some departments. That then it makes it very hard to try to recruit and hire someone that has the same expertise that is needed in those departments. So I think it's important that we continue to find ways to support and compensate our employees, and I think it's a sign of good faith that this board is committed to making sure that our employees get a fair wage for the jobs that they perform for this county and for the residents of Santa Cruz County. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much.
Supervisor Miller, any comments?
I agree 100% with Supervisor Reese. We definitely need to take care of our employees, especially with, fast food, all these other places increasing. We have to keep up with the norm. And those are my thoughts.
My comment is, my question is, the 6% cost of living increase that we've done, there have been other steps that have taken also to take care of some of the employees on the lower end of the wage scale?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. That's a great question. There has been, and the board has been very, very supportive on all those recommendations in the past, that we've had a 3% last year and also a step plan of every 3 years, including a 3% increase for all employees. So we like to be appreciative of that of the board as well.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
No, sir.
Okay, Mauricio?
The last slide that I have, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, that's the levy limit worksheet that's provided by the Arizona Department of Revenue. I went over that in the Truth in Taxation, and that, of course, it's the maximum allowable levy limit of $19,228,897, which what we're proposing is way below that. It's just a sheet that's provided by them showing that amount. I would entertain any questions or any comments from the board.
Any supervisor?
Thank you, Mr.
Vice Chairman.
Chairman. Mauricio, thank you and your staff. It was a outstanding presentation. Given the circumstances that we're in, especially with an economy, people say it's a technical recession. A recession is a recession. There's nothing technical about it. With a high cost of inflation, with the price of products going up, we have people living paycheck to paycheck. And, it's unfortunate that the economy has taken such a downturn, and it's no different than it was in 2008, I believe, when it first hit. And I think, if I remember correctly, we were the first county that kind of identified it and started taking the steps necessary. So when we were there, I think we were better prepared. But it just shows that you're in tune to what's happening. I think our staff, our management, our electeds, our department heads are in tune with trying to be as fair as we can when it comes to the funds that we collect from our own taxpayers, and even those funds that we get from the federal government to assist us with our projects. So, congratulations for working through a lot of this, for the presentation that you have made today. And, I know that we will be ever vigilant, is it? Or of how we spend our dollars. But I think it's a team effort, and everybody does their part to make sure that we're on the straight and narrow and live within our means. So thank you for that. So, Mr. Chairman, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Supervisor Malera.
I too want to thank you, Mauricio, and your staff, Jennifer, department heads, our electeds. Thank you for attending today, by the way, and thank you for working well with our staff, with Jennifer and Mauricio. We really appreciate your support. It's just an odd situation post-COVID. COVID created a major supply and demand issue, along with other issues that we're going to have to fight through, and hopefully once the dust settles here in a year or two, things can kind of really normalize. I'm excited for Santa Cruz County, because there's a lot of really exciting things happening. I think there's great opportunity coming, and super excited. Again, thank you, and appreciate your hard work.
Okay. Putting a budget together is no small feat, and as both my colleagues have said, it takes the coordination of other elected officials and our department heads. It's a lot easier to manage our department heads, but the cooperation from the elected officials in managing their budgets is greatly appreciated. We have constraints, as Supervisor Reese spoke earlier about, our lowered expenditure limitations, and we appreciate everybody working within that zone. When you talk about developing strategies for the future, this board will need, and the community will need, to address developing strategies for the income that South 32 is going to be generating for this community, and also being able to stay within our expenditure limitations, which is going to be meaning whatever we need to come up with as a group to provide the services, because at the end of the day, what the county is doing is we're providing services for our constituents, whether it's the transportation and the roads, whether it's the flooding, and it's the offices that are mandated by the state constitution that we have here: the recorder, the treasurer, the assessor, the attorneys, judicial. These are all services that our constituents use. Hopefully, you're not using the judicial very much, but these are things that are available to us. The one thing that is always challenging, and we brought that up in the very first presentation that we saw today, was the unfunded mandates that the state passes down to us. And every year, we, as county supervisors, and we have there's two associations that represent electeds in the state of Arizona with the state legislature. One of them is ACO, Arizona Association of Elected Officers. The other one is the Arizona County Supervisors Association. And they, brilliantly, they started the Arizona County Supervisors Association because we realized that even though we are elected officials, our mission is just a little bit different than what some of the other electeds are, in that we are responsible for the budget. And as such, we need to be advocating with the Arizona State Legislature specifically on that issue. So when we get you know, the County Supervisors Association does an excellent job, and you'll probably see a presentation from them the second meeting of this month. They'll come down and do a report on what they advocated for and what we were able to stop the legislature from passing costs on down to us. This year, unfortunately, the cost that got passed down to us was over $500,000 in Arizona long-term care system. And those are challenging things for us when we're fighting with our budgets and things are very lean down here, and the state is sitting on surpluses of billions of dollars, that they feel that there is a need to do that. The other thing that the state, you know, could have helped us with, and a lot of communities with, was the PRPRC, which is the retirement system for the police officers. This is something that for many years county supervisors had no control over on their board, and yet the bill that Santa Cruz County was left with when we decided to try to deal with it was like $11 million. That's a lot of money for a community like us. We were smart, with interest rates were good. We took advantage of an opportunity to refund that debt, restructure that debt in a different way, and that was a very good move by, you know, my management and this board, so thanks for taking care of that. It limits our liability on the upside. But these are the things that, you know, we face as a board, and we face with our other 61 county supervisors in the state of Arizona when we band together and we try to work with the Arizona State Legislature. And hopefully, in this next session, we'll have some more open ears, and we'll be able to continue to minimize these cost unfunded mandates that they love passing down to us. But again, Mauricio, thank you very much. Jennifer, thank you for you and your staff, and again, all the other electeds. We really appreciate what you came to the table with this year. You came in with lean budgets. We did not add employees. We've done a really good job managing this thing this last year, and hopefully we'll continue to do the same for our constituents in the upcoming year. Anybody else have anything else to add?
Well stated, and that's the importance of being engaged, and I would encourage our citizens to reach out to the state legislature as well. Because believe it or not, you probably carry more weight when you talk to an elected official as an elected official talking to them. So we'll make sure that we have numbers available for you so that you can call and voice your concerns as a citizen, not an elected official, as to what they're doing. So hopefully we'll see what will come into the state legislature. We had elections last night, at least primaries, and now we'll see in November who will be at the legislature representing our state. So stay tuned, folks.
Madam Manager, you have any comment?
I just wanted to, when the supervisors are done, just to get public comment again,
Okay.
because we are in a public hearing, so.
Okay. So now that you've heard everything that we want to say, is there anybody from the public that would like to make a comment? And there's nobody in the room that would like to make a comment. Is there anybody online that would like to make a comment? If you could raise your hand, or if you're on the phone, hit *6 or 9, but don't hang up. Okay. And I'll ask again for the room. And nobody's rushing up to the dais? Thank you very much. So we'll move to item B.
So, Mr. Chairman, I will go ahead and move that we adjourn our public hearing and convene into our special meeting.
Second.
I have a motion, a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. We're in the special meeting, and with item 1 is discussion, possible action, the approval of resolution number 2022-13, adopting the Santa Cruz County budget for fiscal year 2022-2023.
Mr. Chairman, I will go ahead and move that we approve resolution number 2022-13, adopting Santa Cruz County budget for fiscal year 2022-2023.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion?
Just under discussion, there's a few things that I'd like to see, but I guess I can bring those up as an agenda item for the next meeting. Okay.
That's what you want.
Okay. And no other discussion. I call for the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion carries unanimously. Item 2, discussion possible action, adoption of the fiscal year 2022-2023 tax rates for jurisdictions within Santa Cruz County.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move that we, for the adoption of FY 2022, 2023 tax rates for jurisdictions within Santa Cruz County.
I'll second that.
And I have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion?
Just to say that there are some that went down a little bit in some of the areas that you
Yes,
were
sir, that's
pointing
correct.
out. Just to make sure, but, you know, there's still a taxing deal, and the board has no jurisdiction to tell or change the tax rates that are presented to this board for adoption. Is that correct, Jennifer?
Yes, sir, on the other, excuse me, on the other special districts, the fire boards, the school districts, the board does not have the ability.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any comments?
No,
The
sir.
only comment is, for clarification, that these are rates that these other elected boards, and these are elected boards, have proposed to us for adoption. And so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and the motion carries unanimously. And we're left to item C, adjournment.
Mr. Chairman, I will go ahead and move we adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and we are adjourned.